Hey everybody, Ansublue here, and today I am using my VTuber model. I have been trying to record in VR chat, but unfortunately my headset is very old and the hand tracking on it is constantly drifting everywhere, making recordings incredibly difficult. And after editing together a 20-minute video the other day, I realized that, wow, this looks horrible because my arms are just kind of clipping into my body at random points through about 75% of the video. So I unfortunately had to just throw out the entire video. I'll keep the script and maybe I can come back to that later once I have better hardware. But for the time being, I'm probably just going to use my VTuber model to do sort of these fireside chat type videos. But today I wanted to talk about a question that's been bouncing around in my head since I watched the movie The Drama earlier this week. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything for the movie, so don't worry about that. But it did give me the question that has been sort of rattling around inside me of, can people change? And while I believe that the answer to this is yes, it's distressing to me how many straight people believe that the answer to this question is no. Now, this connection that I've drawn between straight people and the belief that people can't or won't change seems like a big stretch, right? But I do believe that there's a little bit of a solid basis to it. And that is rooted in societal heteronormativity. As a member of the queer community, when I was grappling with my sexuality, when I was coming out, and in the years following, I very frequently had to ask myself, who am I? Because I was raised in a Christian household, um, Mormon household, and I was very much expected to be the good Mormon boy that married the good Mormon girl in the temple, and that was who I was supposed to be. That is not who I am. And because that's not who I am, I had to spend a lot of time in my teenage years and all the way up through my 20s constantly asking myself, who am I? And it's something that I will still touch on now that I've turned 32. And it's something that I'm going to constantly consider throughout my life. And I see that as a gift. I was talking with some friends last night, and we had some really interesting conversations about the effect that heteronormativity has on everyone, both in the queer community and in the straight community. Straights have a community? Is that, I don't think that's how that works. Is that how that works? Regardless of that, we were talking about the effect that heteronormativity has on everyone. And the effects obviously are different for different people. But as queer people, we all had to face who we are and accept that we do not fit in the norm. And that's scary when you're young. That's really, really scary. However, it can also be, like I said before, a gift because I was forced to think about who I am in the face of a society that doesn't accept me for who I am, in the face of a family that doesn't accept me for who I am. But I know who I am because I spent years thinking about it and considering, who am I? What what space do I exist in now that the space that I've had for the majority of my life at the time is no longer safe for me. That's no longer a place that I'm allowed to be because I don't fit there anymore. I don't fit the norm. So I can't stay there. Where do I go? Who do I become? What do I do with myself? And these questions just followed me for years. And I still have to find these spaces. I build, I curate these spaces for myself that allow me to be me. And I'm very lucky in the communities that I've been able to both foster and join. that are incredibly accepting, incredibly loving communities that I feel extremely lucky to be able to interact in. However, there is a flip side to this, and that is for straight people, they never left the norm. And obviously, I can't speak in fully generalized statements about this. That's a logical fallacy, just assuming that everybody has the same experiences. And this isn't to say that straight people can't have introspection, because obviously they do. There are plenty of straight people who do. However, it is not the default setting for straight people to be introspective because they don't have to be. They don't need to be introspective because they are already the norm. And that is both a gift and a curse. It's a it's a blessing and a cage that they have to actively choose to try to step out of. Nothing is going to force them to become introspective. Nothing is going to force a straight person to feel like a space is not for them, at least in regards to their sexuality and the norms of society. They are allowed to exist in that society without feeling discomfort, without feeling like they don't belong, because there's nothing there that questions who they are. I spent some time last night sort of ruminating with my friends about the idea of who I might be if I was straight. And honestly, I don't think I like that guy. And that's scary to think about. That if I hadn't been absolutely forced out of a comfortable space, I may have become a person that I don't like. That's terrifying. But as I said, I think that heteronormativity is a gift and a cage for straight people because they, while they're allowed to feel comfortable in these spaces and they don't have to question things, it may be to their detriment because they're not taking the time to necessarily ask these questions of who am I, where do I belong, what's important to me, because they'd never had to. As I said before, obviously there's no hard and fast rule for every straight person has had this experience or has not had this experience. Obviously, there is room for variation. Everybody has different lived experiences. Everybody has different emotional and spiritual milestones that they encounter as they learn more about themselves as a person. I'm not trying to invalidate that at all. I simply want to draw attention to the fact that as a queer community, as queer people, we have to internalize these questions. We have to try to come up with answers. And it's not always an easy answer. It's not always a fun answer. And sometimes we find things in the course of asking who we are, we find things that we don't like, but that's kind of the core of change. Can we change as a person? I think so. Because change is the only constant in my life. Now, I'm not going to dig too much deeper into this. I just wanted this to be a quick video, let you guys know, hey, I'm still here, I'm still making stuff, and sort of give a reason for why there's been delays on that as well. But I hope to see you guys soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. I very much appreciate every single one of you, and I hope to see you guys in future videos. Have a good night.